Hi, everybody. This is Anton Joseph with Strive Fitness and Athletics, and thank you for taking the time out of your schedules to join me on this webinar as it relates to navigating college recruiting and athletics for Canadian athletes. As I mentioned, my name is Anton Joseph. I'm Executive Director of Strive Fitness and Athletics, and I've had the good fortune of being in the sport and fitness industry for the last 34 years now. And I've had the opportunity to work with over 40,000 athletes. And I'm currently a sport agent as well in the arena of promoting and working with athletes and taking them to the professional level. So one of the biggest things that I've had a lot of questions over the years about is how do I navigate and how do I get involved as it relates to getting a scholarship and or getting noticed by universities and coaches. I had the good fortune of being able to play at the U.S. college level. I played NCAA Division II football and ran track at the NCAA Division II level, and was very fortunate to be in a situation where I was able to leverage not only some of the things I was doing in the classroom, but some of the things that I was doing on the football field in order to attain a scholarship. One of the biggest challenges for athletes is trying to figure out how to get noticed, how to market oneself, and how to get in front of coaches that are looking for talent. And I want to go through a number of different steps that you as an athlete or as a parent can help your child and yourself navigate through the process. Talk about some of the misnomers that are out there as it relates to marketing oneself, and give you a little bit of a guideline to follow to pursue your opportunities in terms of scholarship. So let's talk about the landscape of college athletics. Currently, there's a couple of different options as it relates to going to colleges and universities. So one being Canadian colleges and universities, so U Sport, the CCAA, which is the Canadian College Athletics Association, which is more of a 2-year school program. And then obviously that involves the various associations within each province. And each province has its own association based on that CCAA relationship. And then the other option is U.S. colleges and universities. So NCAA Division 1, 2, and 3, as well as NAIA, as well as the NJCAA, which is the National Junior College Association. There are different opportunities within each organization as it relates to scholarships that are available for college athletes, ranging from sports, from football, soccer, baseball, basketball, women's fast pitch. There's a ton of different opportunities, hockey, that individuals can take part in terms of scholarship opportunities, and we'll navigate through some of those today. So let's talk about eligibility requirements, because at the end of the day, when it comes to all of this, you have to have the mindset of being a student athlete. I've seen so many athletes that I've worked with and or have coached that have the ability to play at the next level in terms of college, but unfortunately they lack the ability in terms of ensuring that their school marks are where they need to be in order to get to school. I always tell athletes, you have to be a student athlete, meaning that student is first, and then the athletic performance and everything else will come next. I've seen a lot of individuals that might not be where some people are at in terms of the athletic ability and performance, but at the same time, they had the marks to get into school and were able to develop some of those skills that are necessary to be a better athlete. Now, in terms of requirements, most Canadian colleges and universities require at least a 70% average with all of your core subjects. In the United States, it's a little bit different. You have to be a part of the top 50% of your graduating class. That being said, you have to have the marks to graduate, and you have to be in a situation where you're able to address certain criteria in the United States in order to qualify. For example, doing what's called the ACT or the SAT. Those are two basic college requirements for individuals to go into college and universities down in the United States. That being also said, there's specific benchmarks and performance marks that you have to have in terms of being able to be eligible. And I mentioned the 50% component of your graduating class at your current high school. Other requirements for evaluating your basic highlight videos and or specific statistics, achievements, rewards, any athletic achievement that is necessary to kind of raise you above the bar in terms of what other athletes are doing in terms of your sport. So say, for example, you're the MVP of your team, or you're a league all-star, or you're the most improved athlete. All those little opportunities and achievements add up as it relates to what coaches are looking for. I should also talk to about a little bit about the recruiting process and a misnomer. A lot of kids ask me, well, am I going to get an opportunity to go to a U.S. college if I'm Canadian and I have these certain aspirations to play at a certain level? And my answer is 100%. There's a lot of great athletes in Canada who end up playing high-level athletics down in the United States. The biggest challenge, though, is that a lot of these schools, even the bigger schools, don't have the budget and aren't allowed to market and to recruit outside of their local areas. So it's up to you as an athlete to market yourself to those universities and colleges. One of the main reasons they don't have those opportunities is because they don't have the budgets, and or they have limitations based on their league in terms of what their league allows them to do. So the biggest thing that you can do as an athlete is set yourself up for success and establish a relationship with these college coaches and or recruiters necessary in order to get yourself in front of those athletes, or sorry, some of those teams. Let's talk about schools and that whole recruiting process. So when it comes down to it, you want to start researching specific schools and athletic programs, right? And number one, you have to figure out what you actually want to do in school. It makes no sense to try to market yourself to a number of schools that don't offer the program that you want to take. So number one, right off the bat, decide what you want to do as it relates to your program that you want to take in school. And then from there, that will narrow down the list of schools that you have an opportunity to participate in to go to. If you decide, okay, I want to take, for example, business or education or something that's a little bit more common, obviously you're going to have a little bit of a broader net to cast in terms of the type of schools that you go to and that you market yourself to. But the biggest thing is you need to establish what you want to take right off the bat so that you eliminate the possibility of going to a school, participating in a program for 4 or 5 years, and then coming out with a degree that you didn't want to take. Okay. So start with researching potential schools and then create a target list. I have my athletes, for the most part, do anywhere from 10 to 20 different colleges at all different levels of schools that they want to participate, they want to go to. And I try to encourage those athletes, especially our Canadian athletes, to look at schools that are within Canada and then looking at schools that are within the United States to give them a broad scope of what is potentially out there. From there, what I do in terms of once an individual's created their list, I help them start building relationships. And so one of the next things that you need to do is start establishing relationships with those particular schools. So for example, contacting the school and filling out their actual athlete intake form as part of their website on their from their athletic department. So most schools will have, actually all schools will have some type of website specific to their athletic department. And then on that has a resource form for incoming athletes and recruits to fill out. You have to fill out that information. There's no getting around that. That's the first point of contact for the schools. I've heard where individuals were talking to coaches and what have you, and then all of a sudden the relationship stopped and the conversation stopped because the athlete couldn't take the basic step in terms of filling out the basic forms that are required. And I tell athletes all the time, these coaches, they do this for a living professionally. The last thing that they want is a project. And so if you can't fill out a basic form, the chances of you being a successful athlete at the college level are very low. So you have to fill out the information. You have to fill out the forms that are necessary in order to move forward as part of the process. Once you've filled out those forms and that online form, you want to establish a connection with the recruiter of that particular program. So say, for example, in football, chances are the head coach wouldn't be the point of contact. It would be an assistant coach that is in charge of the recruiting process. So being in a position where you're contacting that individual directly via email so that you can establish that relationship and provide additional information that the recruiting form didn't cover. That way you're in a position where you put yourself in front of those people that are in the process of making the decision or helping make the decision and are the gatekeepers, if you will, for their program. So the other thing that I try to get my athletes to do right off the bat before they even start that whole process is develop what I call an athletic resume. So listing all of your achievements, all of the things that are necessary that we talked about earlier in terms of the awards and different things that you've done in terms of your athletic career. Once you've established that, you can use that component to market to that recruiter that I mentioned earlier. So that individual that's in the position who is responsible for doing the recruiting for the organization. Pay attention to the communications and follow-ups. So make a list of all of the teams that you've contacted and the outcome of that. So meaning that you know what you've said and the conversations that were had, the individuals that you talked to, the schools that you talked to, and the follow-up associated with that. You want to stay on top of that because essentially you're managing this whole process. And if you're talking to 10 to 15 or 20 schools, you want to keep straight in terms of what was said and how it was said. And that way you have an idea of how to follow up and what questions to ask those individuals as you move through the process. From there, it's really important if you have the ability, for example, if you're in grade 10 or 11 or even grade 12, to visit the school and take part in some of their camps and programs that the school offers. And the reason why I say that is the majority of those camps are operated and run by the coaches that you will be seeing that are coaching at the university level. So if you can get in front of those coaches as an athlete and show them what you can do in terms of your athletic ability, it'll make a huge difference in terms of being able to establish that connection with that coach. They can, from being in front of them, you can basically elevate yourself amongst all the other individuals that are in a position where they're just, how should I put this? Just in a position where they're sending emails or maintaining conversation, maybe via telephone. It makes a huge difference if a coach can see how big you are, how fast you are, what you're able to do as it relates to the sport, and it'll make their decision a lot easier when they go to recruit. Now, one of the biggest things that you want to do, though, before you go to any of those events, obviously, is to put in the training that's necessary in order to get you ready. You don't want to show up and not have the training in place so that you don't put your best foot forward. So make sure that you do everything that you can leading up to that in order to be physically ready in order to perform at those camps. Now, let's talk about scholarships and financial aid and all that good stuff, because that seems to be, there's a lot of confusion on what schools can and can't do in terms of aid. There's several different ways that schools offer scholarship opportunities. There's the athletic route, meaning that based on your athletic performance, schools can provide opportunities as it relates to scholarship. And then, of course, there's the academic route. So making sure that you have the marks in order to qualify for additional funds to help fund your education. In my case, when I went down to the United States, I was in a position where I was able to receive a full scholarship based on my academic and athletic ability. So, meaning that I had to maintain a certain GPA or grade point average in terms of my studies, as well as perform at a certain level on the field. And with those two combined components, I was able to get my education paid for. Some universities and colleges offer full scholarships based on just the athletic component, and some are strictly on the academic component. So it all depends on where you're at as it relates to being able to participate in your program and what type of marks you have and are able to maintain throughout your university career in order to justify the scholarship that's associated with you coming in to their program. Now, there's a couple of different things that are available to athletes as well. For example, in Alberta, there is the Rutherford Scholarship for graduating individuals that are coming out of a program, high school program in Alberta. There are U.S. opportunities for those individuals that are American that have, based on financial aid, based on need, as well as government programs here in Canada that are available as well. So the key then is navigating through those programs and seeing what opportunities are out there to help fund your education. That being said, it's all about negotiating opportunities as well with the coach. Once you get into a position where an initial offer is made, it's key to have additional conversations with the coach to see what other opportunities are available. That doesn't mean just basically saying, I want more money. It means having the conversation and asking what things I can do in order to increase my opportunities with your program. And you might have a coach tell you that you need a certain GPA, or you need to perform at this level, or you need to have specific benchmarks that will allow you to get to that level in terms of scholarship. For example, a certain level of performance in your first year, and based on that performance in your second and third and fourth year, and increase scale in terms of the amount of scholarship. So those are conversations that you need to have once you've established that the school that you're talking to is one in which you want to go to, as well as that the program itself wants you to participate in their program. So let's talk about navigating that whole process in terms of the decision-making process, because I know when you all of a sudden you're in a position where you're starting to have to talk to universities and colleges and coaches, it can be very daunting in terms of what to say, how to say it, and how to phrase it. Now, number one, coaches are looking for student athletes. So making sure that you have the schooling in place in order to even attend the college in the first place. Like I mentioned earlier, coaches don't want and need projects, and they want players that can be in a position where they are participating in the program for that 4 to 5 year period. In Canada, there's Canadian universities provide 5 years of eligibility, whereas in the United States, you can play a total of 4 years in your respective program. With that, you want to basically be in a situation where um, you start with that whole process, having the conversations, attending a camp or two in terms of the universities and colleges, and then from there, being in a position where you start the discussion as it relates to the scholarship opportunity. Um, you want to sit down and evaluate each offer based on its merit. So, meaning uh, how far the university is as it relates to travel, what's the quality of the program itself, of the university that you're going to, what's the quality of the educational opportunity that you're going to. Is there an opportunity for you to be in a starting position within the next 2 to 3 years of attending the school? Being in a position where you decide, um, is the scholarship enough to cover the tuition and fees associated with going to that university? Do I have to pay room and board as well as other factors that will increase the overall cost to going to that university or college? Um, how is it for navigating in terms of uh, being able to do some classes as it relates to in person versus online? How do they work around my overall athletic schedule, in being in a position where they are able to ensure that I stay up to date in terms of my education while I'm participating in the sport? And those are big things that you want to be in a situation where you discuss um, with your parents and or decide on your own whether those are factors that will um, create a checkbox, so to speak, for that particular college, or an X for you going to that particular university. The other thing that you want to do is really have a good conversation with coaches as well as existing players as part of that program. So being in a position where you reach out to some of the players that are part of that particular program or team that you're looking at as a potential opportunity for the school. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of time players will tell you how their experience has been, and it'll save you a lot of heartache down the road. Sometimes individuals jump into a program just because they've been recruited and realize the program is totally a not good fit for them. It puts them in a situation where all of a sudden it's like, I I want to transfer, I want to go to a different program, I don't like the schooling that I'm doing, a number of different factors. So you want to avoid all of that headache by getting as much information and reconnaissance from the university or list of universities that you've gone to. And when it comes down to it, and I mentioned it earlier, it's about staying organized. I would start a spreadsheet with the universities and colleges that you've contacted, their information that and the correspondence that you've had back and forth, and then that additional information, including the deadlines that are associated with registration for that school, and then what was said in terms of the athletic program from the players and or athletes themselves. That'll give you a great opportunity to know exactly what people think about the program, and it'll help make your decision a lot easier. One of the other things that I would do is just make sure that you write down all of the deadlines associated with getting into school. Um, so often athletes start the conversation and start the recruiting process, but they have no idea when the actual deadlines for applications for those schools are. So make sure you make note of those application deadlines, especially for the program that you want to go into. So say, for example, it's business. Sometimes the business faculty will have a different application time versus the education faculty. Or if you're going general studies, the application time might be a lot later than a specific program that you're trying to get into. So make sure you pay attention, and as part of that spreadsheet and as part of that note taking, you write that information down. That also being said, you want to make sure that you have a really good conversation once you've narrowed down the 2 to 3 universities that you're looking at going to. Make sure you really sit down and say, okay, um, is this a good fit for me? Does it have all the checks that I need and all the positive aspects of going to school that I need? Does it have the program, the quality of life, everything that I need in order to be successful? And then ask your peers and get a little bit of information and opinion from others. But ultimately, it has to be your decision. And you have to be comfortable with that decision, because to transfer universities and colleges, while it is a bit easier now with some of the transfer portal opportunities down in the United States, it can be a little bit daunting and set you back academically, because sometimes courses don't transfer over. Sometimes your academics, you'll be starting over with some of your coursework, and it can become costly, especially when you finish your university program. So those are huge things to consider. And so you want to avoid all of that by making sure that the school that you choose is the right school for you. Now, that also being said, if you decide to go the US route, I mentioned the SAT and ACT. There are specific deadlines for taking those tests in order to address and get into a various college or university. So you've got to make sure that you're in a position where you address that. And so all you have to go do is go on the SAT website or the ACT website and look at international student test dates and make note of when those tests are being offered locally. One of the other things that most people don't realize is that you can write those tests as many times as you want. So, for example, I know an athlete that ended up writing the SAT 5 times in order to get into an Ivy League school. And so you don't have to worry about being penalized in terms of writing those tests over and over again. This will give you the opportunity to get into the best school that you possibly can be in, and if you start early enough. So you can start as early as your grade 10 year and write those SATs I believe they're every 3 to 4 months in terms of their offering. Usually the international programs are offered or tests are offered about 4 times a year. And they're offered locally here in Calgary and some of the other cities that you may be tuning in from. But you have to get on that early. You can't wait until your grade 12 year and decide, I'm going to do my SATs and go to a U.S. school. And meanwhile, you only have maybe 1 or 2 opportunities to write that test. You want to give yourself as much runway as possible. And all of this whole process, in terms of talking to universities, talking to coaches, filling out information, can start in your grade 9, grade 10 year, no matter what sport you're involved in. Not to say that grade 12 is too late, but you start putting yourself behind the 8 ball. That being said, I played Canadian junior football before I went to U.S. college. And so I was lucky enough to be able to continue playing outside of high school and then continue the process so that I was able to, one, upgrade my marks so that I was ready to go to school and be in a position where I was going to be successful as a student. But then two, making sure that I had all the requirements in order to get into a school and be successful down the road. So make sure that you give yourself enough time. If you're in grade 9, grade 10, now's the time to start attending those camps. Now's the time to start developing that list and being in a position where you get yourself in front of coaches. If you're grade 11, grade 12, you're a little bit behind the 8 ball, but you still have an opportunity to market yourself. But you've got to get on it, and it's got to be you got to have due diligence in order to move things forward. If you're already outside of high school, it's still not too late, but you've got to now really put it into overdrive in order to get in front of schools and colleges. What I want to do next is just talk about or just open up the floor for questions and answers, because I know people have specific questions that they want to have answered and to address. So if you can throw any questions that you might have into the chat, and then we can discuss it as we go along. If you don't have any questions, that's okay. We can have a little bit more in terms of takeaways and that sort of thing. So any questions, throw it into the chat, guys. I love it. Everybody knows exactly what they're going to do and how they're going to get recruited in college, for colleges and universities. Any questions, anybody? Now, one of the biggest things, and a lot of people just get overwhelmed with the amount of information and the amount of things that you have to do in order to get recruited. One of the things that we offer at Strive is a recruiting package or process for athletes and individuals to get recruited to colleges and universities, both here in Canada and down in the United States. We have a fully automated system where we take over every aspect of your college recruitment. And then we have an assisted program where we act as more of a guide or as a resource for you in terms of handling certain aspects of your recruitment process, but then providing you with the tools necessary to do it in conjunction with us. Both programs and offerings are offered in our on our college recruiting page at strivefitness.ca. When one of the biggest things that we try to do is try to be flexible for all individuals. So for those individuals that are trying to be in a position where they want to do it by themselves, but at the same time they need the guidance that are necessary, we have a package for them. For those individuals that want to be completely, for the most part, hands off and allow us to take them through the whole process and contact the schools and be in a position where we're able to provide the networking and everything that's necessary, we have an option for that as well. If you, on your chat or just below some of the buttons that you have on your webinar window, you have that offer feature where you can go and click and see some of the things that we have to offer on at Strive Fitness and Athletics. And let me let you guys know, it's not about just selling you information or selling you the opportunity to get recruited and that sort of thing. I truly want to see you succeed, and I want to see you in a position where you are getting the tools necessary and the things necessary in order to promote you, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing this, is to try to provide you with that guidance. I've got a question in the chat from James. How should we create highlight reels? If so, or should we create highlight reels? If so, what should they look like and what should they contain? Now, actually, that's a really good question. Anybody can put together a highlight reel, so to speak. So say, for example, the best of everything that you've done in terms of your career so far. A lot of coaches see that as the first step that you need to put together. So going through utilizing software like Huddle and other software that usually the teams utilize for recruiting, for scouting and what have you. A lot of times as a player, you have access to that video. You want to use that video in order to create a specific highlight reel. That's your first step. But most coaches will actually want an uncut game, meaning that they want to see an entire game of you participating in the sport in your position so that they can see the good, the bad, and the ugly. So that you're in a position where if you're doing certain things right, they want to see it. If you're doing things that need improvement, they want to see that too. And there's nothing wrong with doing so, but try to put your best game out there for them to look at. Now, I was lucky when I got recruited. I actually got recruited by one of my teammates' game tapes. He was on offense and had a great game. But when the college that I ended up going to recruited me, they had not only seen the offensive side of things, but the defensive side of things as well. And I have happened to have a really, really good game that particular game. And then all of a sudden I got a call. So that being said, put together a good highlight tape for your initial intake information. And then from there, start looking at what your best overall full game is, and then submit that as well when you start your conversations with your coaches and or the recruiting individuals as part of your program. So really good question, James. Any other questions, guys? I know it can be daunting and it's a lot of information. Now, there's a couple of different things that you can do as well in terms of resources and what have you. So obviously, one of the biggest resources is the internet, being in a position where you can start looking at colleges and universities throughout Canada and the US. Obviously, those programs have to have the sport that you're involved in, and as well as the actual academic program that you're want to be involved in. So first steps first, making sure once you do a search in terms of, for example, baseball schools in Canada. That'll give you a list of all the schools that offer baseball as part of their university programs. And then from there, you can start doing individual research on those schools. Not only just the athletic side of things, but do the research on the school itself, including the requirements to get into specific programs, the deadlines, all that sort of thing. Then start putting together your list in a nice spreadsheet so that it'll tell you exactly, keep you organized in terms of what school you've talked to, how to go about things in terms of follow-up, and maybe crossing some schools off your list. And then narrowing down that list so that you're down to, like I said, that 2 to 3 to 4 schools that you can look at applying to. Okay. Are there any additional questions? Yeah, go ahead, James. I didn't quite hear that. Okay, I didn't quite hear that, James, unfortunately.
We're back.
Mm.
Oh, I don't.
Can you hear me?
You're good to go.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Copy that.
So you had a question?
No, you answered my question, Anton. I'm just also curious. Like, should we do like a highlight reel, like with him doing charity work, working out, and that sort of thing as well? Because he loves to get back to society. Like he likes to go to where they give, where they give out the turkey dinners and stuff like that at the shelters. He loves doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You know what? All that is good stuff. But I would put that actually as part of that sport resume that you submit to the coaches, as opposed.
Okay.
Because when it comes down to it, the coaches are there to evaluate talent and that sort of thing. So they want to get it down and dirty, because a lot of times they'll probably have anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000 applicants, depending on the school, right? So it's like they got to get through it fairly quickly. So if you can narrow it down to sport highlights in terms of how they perform, and then put that as part of their sport resume, and then even a reference letters and what have you, that will help.
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome.
Thank you, buddy.
No worries. So, any other questions, anyone? Okay, we've got another question in the chat. Where do you go to find out specific athletics start to finish? So softball, 2 weeks prior to the program classes start and end. So basically, this whole process is basically you say, for example, if you're in your grade 10 or 11 year, schools can start talking to you after your grade in the summer after your grade 11 year. So at least down in the United States. And so there's a couple different blackout periods that happen and occur during the year. Generally, universities and colleges after your grade 11 year can start talking to you in terms of potential opportunities and that sort of thing. But that's not to say that you can't, as an athlete, reach out to those universities and colleges, establish connection, and then go to camps prior to that blackout or that conversation period. It's all about being in a position where you get on the ball as early as possible, and then from there you can find out that information, because each program is different from program to program to program in terms of when it starts, when it finishes, the when classes are, how the class structure is, how many classes are required in order to stay eligible. And that's different from college and university to right through to each actual program or association, if you will. So you want to make sure you say, for example, you're looking at NCAA. The requirements for NCAA is completely different than NAIA, which are both in the United States, which is completely different from junior college, and which is completely different from Canadian university. So it's determining where you're wanting to go and then having those conversations with the individual coaches. Hopefully I answered your question. So that being said, couple big takeaways. Start early. If you have the opportunity to start early, get in as early as you possibly can in terms of marketing yourself to colleges and universities. And it's a process, especially, and I know it can be overwhelming, but if you stay organized and or need help, there are opportunities there for you. And of course, we offer some of those opportunities, but at the same time, you can navigate through this process by really utilizing some of the tools that are available, including the internet and what have you. That being said, if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out at any time. I'll give you guys my email address. It's Anton J, so ANTONJ at strivefitness.ca. Here, I'll throw it into the, see if I can throw it into the chat. So it's Anton J at strivefitness.ca. Didn't quite get in there in terms of the chat. Let me just put it in there again. So Anton J at strivefitness.ca. So if you do have any questions whatsoever, or want to talk a little bit more on how we can help you or your child get recruited, feel free to reach out at no obligation at all. Because like I said, I'm here to try to provide you with the tools necessary to get you where you need to be. Any other questions as we go to wrap it up? So if there aren't any additional questions, I want to thank you guys for taking the time out of your schedules to take part in this webinar. We're going to be doing a number of different opportunities as it relates to learning and free opportunities in terms of talking about training, revisiting the college recruiting, and everything that encompasses being the best athlete possible. So thank you for taking the time out of your schedule. Feel free to reach out at any time if you do have any additional questions, and good luck with the whole recruiting process. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.